Why is no one charged? Let's bring in our think tank tonight to talk about this. This is an important issue. And with us tonight, Angela Dorn, criminal defense attorney, legal women's advocate. She's joining us. Also, Joseph Lowe, trial attorney out in Long Beach, California. And look who showed up tonight, Michael Ayala. Now, any of you who've been watching Court TV through the years know that Michael is one of the original Court TV anchors. And great to see you, Michael. Thank you so much for being here. This is a.
Hey, Vinny, thanks
I'm going to
for
start with
having me
Michael.
on the show.
No,
I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely, Michael. Let me start with you.
Sure.
Should this be a murder case, and should it be a murder case for not just the officer with his knee down, but the other three that are there?
Yeah, you know, Vinny, as you look at this tape, I mean, this is one of these tapes where you're watching it and you can't believe how long this type of abuse goes on, because there's no question it's abuse. Now, is it murder? I do want to say I'm not a police apologist, but we ask our officers to go out and do a very difficult job. And that's one of the reasons why they're not charged right away. It requires investigation. But there is no doubt that as I watch this video, that officer and the officers who stand by watching are getting a perverse sense of pleasure from this. And once he begins to plead for his life, you have to question whether there was some sort of intent, or at least at worst, a reckless disregard for life.
Angela Dorn, let me ask you, is this a case, and there are people who are saying we want, throw the book at him. Is this a case of first-degree premeditated murder?
So, Vinny, I'd say at this point, I don't know that it's premeditated murder. It is a sad and offensive situation. It certainly looks like reckless disregard for this man's life, some form of manslaughter at a minimum, as Michael was saying. Possibly premeditated, maybe because of the amount of time that the officer had his knee on the man's neck, and the man is telling him repeatedly, George Floyd is saying repeatedly, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And frankly, I think he was dead at the scene, and that became apparent to the officers. That's my speculation. I think there could be a case there for premeditated, but we don't have all the information yet.
Joseph Lowe, let me ask you, I was looking at some Minnesota law, and my reading of the law is first degree is premeditated. Second degree is intentional, not premeditated, but intentional. And then you get down to third degree murder, which doesn't have the intent, doesn't have the premeditation. What you saw in the video, does it fall into which of those three categories, if any?
All of them. In fact, it's premeditated murder. Come on, let's call it what it is. I've seen plenty of cops out here. And when that man says he cannot breathe anymore, and that officer has had specialized training where he knows what those moves and those holds are going to do to somebody, and now he's getting confirmation, not just once but twice, but also from trained professionals, medical professionals, telling him on the scene that he's got to let up or he's going to kill the man. All you need is a split second, 1 second before the murder, and it is now qualifies for premeditated murder. That fool should be in handcuffs and in a jail cell somewhere, but because he's wearing the same uniform and looks like the same tribe as the rest of those officers out there, somehow he's not? Explain that to me. And the reason why the other three got fired? It's simple. Because they took an oath as well to protect and to serve, and they stood by there and they watched that poor man die and suffocate, which is a horrible way to go. And they're out as well? Come on, man.
Yeah, Vinny, when I watch this
Michael,
video, oftentimes...
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me just... When you watch these videos, and quite a few times I've seen where officers, they're performing some sort of hold or something on the perp, and the perp is resisting because it hurts, or in this instance, it feels like it's killing them. And then the officers then turn around and use that fighting back against killing me as some sort of resisting arrest. It's this evil cycle, and it really has to stop.
Angela, this of all these cases that we've been covering, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
This one has created more outrage and has more of a universal reaction. I don't hear people coming out and anyone saying, well, we have to know more about what happened just before, or we need to take a look at, the training or the knee, or we have to wait for the autopsy. People are just coming out, including law enforcement, and saying there is no way this is acceptable.
Yeah, I agree. I do see people having the same reaction. I think part of it is that it's part of it's the tape, and seeing someone be suffocated on tape for minutes, long 5, 6, 7 long minutes, and not understanding, how can any reasonable human being do that to another human being? I also just think people have reached a point of tiredness. Every week, it seems like there's another tape coming out about a black man in particular being killed by somebody, often by the police, but by somebody, and people are fed up. It could just be also the times that we're living in now, where we're already experiencing personal crises. People want the relationship with the police to change. There's no doubt about that.
Earlier tonight, my colleague Ashley Banfield had an opportunity to speak with George Floyd's cousin, Tara Brown. Let's take a listen.
There was a prominent attorney who advocates, against this kind of injustice, who tweeted out that he was proud of the courage that it took for these protesters. And I think the photo that was accompanying was, fire and damage. And I wondered how you thought about that.
Well, we obviously don't condone that. We don't want to see, destruction and chaos. That's not going to get what we want. That's not going to get us to where we're trying to go. We do want to say that as much as possible, we want people to protest, but just do it peacefully and in a way that we're not hurting other people.
Michael, we've seen the images over the past couple of nights, and hoping things calm down tonight. But it's been bad in Minneapolis.
Yeah, it's been bad, Vinny. And again, I want to go back to what was said earlier about the fact that this might be a tipping point, Vinny, where people are just tired of seeing these types of things and monitoring social media, speaking with friends, speaking with colleagues. This particular one had a really emotional response from most people. And you're exactly right. People aren't coming to the defense of these guys. Normally, you'll get statements from different areas saying, let's wait, let's not rush to judgment. And we did hear some of that, but certainly not as much as we normally hear, because, again, watching that tape, 5, 6, 7 minutes of what this man is doing, what this officer is doing to this man, it's just mind-boggling.
Joseph, with the protests and then the fires and the looting and everything else that's going on, what impact does that have overall? Because there's obviously a problem overall.
Well, having lived in a city where this has happened not just once but twice before, both times as a result of ongoing police misconduct that seems to get no attention year after year, it has a huge effect. Clearly, it hurts the people living in that community. They're the ones who are actually suffering. And then what it also does, it gives certain advocates for a certain side the opportunity to say, oh, look, these folks are rioting in their own neighborhoods. Can you believe that? The police are justified in the way they behave because the folks are so angry. And it gives them an unfair advantage if something isn't necessarily true. And so I just couldn't help but come back. And when you think of that and you see that rioting, I think of the words by the mayor, and I'll make this short, where he says, well, it's time now to do the hard work. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. The time to do the hard work was before it got to this point, in doing proper screening of officers and personality profiles so that you're not hiring short-tempered, quick-fuse thugs to go out there and patrol your streets, so that it goes on and on and on. The hard work should have been done year after year. When they find out that this Derek Chauvin person had 18 complaints in his record book prior to this, that's when it was time to do the hard work. Now it's time to be accountable for what you weren't willing to do earlier, and it's time to get to that.
Yeah, and Vinny, we can laud the mayor all we want, and he did definitely take steps, the right steps. But there was a blueprint set by Ferguson a while back where you have to act quickly. And he knew that by firing these guys, or at least he hoped, by firing these guys right away, he could probably quell some of these riots or some of this reaction, because he knew just how horrible those tapes were. We did the right thing there, but I agree. It took too long. And for him to do the right thing and to start doing the hard work should have been done a long time ago. Too many of these things are happening across the country.
All right, when we come back.